This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for a talk about diabetes on Avoid the Maze. And Gary Moss and I have been discussing this over the last month, and we probably will continue to until we both are sort of worn out from the information. But prior to going on air, I mentioned to Gary that I went out and was reading up a little bit more on type 2 diabetes, even type 1 diabetes. And we, the scientists have a basis of what is happening to create this disease, but they can't give anybody a short, quick response as if you eat this, then you will have your diabetes under control, or if you don't eat this. And so I think that's sort of what we're going to talk about today, because one of the things I was reading, Gary, is that diabetes type 2 for many individuals usually comes later in their life, sometime in their late 50s and 60s. And so you've already been conditioned for the majority of your life to eat certain foods and like those foods, to be active to whatever degree you've chosen to be in. And yet now you get diagnosed and the doctors basically say, well, we know of some things that are really bad for you, so don't eat those. And you can sort of figure out what you can eat. And if you're overweight, well, you need to lose weight. And sometimes for some of us, we can try to lose weight and it just doesn't come off because we have something called, I think it's called insulin resistance. Yeah. And again, nobody has a good answer on how you can get over that. Yes, there's a lot of pills out on the market right now, and I don't know if any of them have proven anything. So let's go back to a little over 20 years ago when you were diagnosed. They say that typically the way you get diagnosed, you have symptoms. And so my question to you is, when you went to the doctor and they said, hey, Gary, guess what? You have type 2 diabetes. Did you go there because you weren't feeling good and you had some symptoms?
Not really. I live in a senior community, and actually, I had recently moved into this community in the year 2000. And they have all kinds of programs here. And one of the programs connected with UCI, University of California, in their med school, they had a big Winnebago type bus that looked like a doctor's office inside.
Okay.
And it would come here to the community and park in a parking lot. And anyone living in the community could use the facility. And whereas at the time, let's say a visit to my primary care doctor, I was not insured at the time.
Okay.
So for a full exam at a primary care doctor was like $350.
Sure.
And I was on a limited income. I couldn't afford that. So here was this bus, and it offered the service and the same full set of tests and everything was like $25.
Okay.
So I got in line really fast, and I had the full battery of tests and everything. And it was after that experience that the doctor said to me, you know, your blood sugar is kind of high. You should have that looked into deeper. And they had a connection with a clinic. And I shared the story of my terrible experience at that clinic
Right.
where a nurse gave me a wrong dose of insulin and almost killed me. But let's say there weren't any uh, defects there. Again, it was a free service, so I went. And it was beginning then that I started to use insulin and become aware of what diabetes was, because I never even thought about it before that visit. One of the things that we keep talking about, it's the food you consume. In addition to the meds that they were putting me on, they sent me to a nutritionist for a class. And there were several people in the class.
Sure.
And they showed us pictures of the food triangle and, eat this and avoid this and so on. And I proceeded with them. And it seems to me that when we know of some illness or condition, the more we focus on it, the more we have it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And then they start sending you to specialists. Well, the specialist is only interested primarily in that disease. But there are a lot of these things that are sort of common factors that we know aren't necessarily good for us, but no one really knows 100% that it's connected to this thing that we have
Sure.
called type 2 diabetes. One of the interesting things that I did over the years, especially in the early 2000s, I was introduced to an endocrinologist who has the reputation of being one of the best in the LA area where I live. And he had several trials going on that he participated in. He actually was out there enrolling people in a whole variety of things. I never was frightened of these trials,
Sure.
and I was always raising my hand. And I have to say that there were a couple reasons. Number one, I hoped I got the cure.
Right.
Num-
Absolutely.
Number two, when you participated, you got paid. So I went to the doctor and wasn't paying him, I was getting paid.
Right.
I wasn't making a fortune, but there were several $100s a month
Sure.
for going to this, and they were tracking my condition. One of the exciting things that I got involved with at the beginning, they were trying a new drug to cure type 2 diabetes. The name of the drug is Contrave, Contrave. Um, I was weaned onto the drug. Started out week one taking one pill a day in the morning. Week two, one in the morning and one at night. Week three, two in the morning, one at night. Week four, two in the morning, two at night. And what this was supposed to do, it was supposed to address my weight. I
Okay.
started on the drug around September the 1st. This is about 5 years ago. My weight at the time was 220 pounds. I'm only 5'7". So I was definitely overweight. In 4 months' time, my weight dropped to 168.
Wow.
I lost over 50 pounds in 4 months. Some people kind of gasped at that, said that's not healthy to lose that much weight all at once. I was under the doctor's care and I
Sure.
was seeing them weekly. I wasn't really concerned, um, but at that point, they took me off the drug. I obviously didn't want to lose more weight.
Right.
The most expensive part for me was that none of my clothes fit.
Oh.
The first time in my life I bought skinny jeans.
I love it.
Fell in love with my body.
Yeah,
But now being off the drug, the weight comes back.
sure.
It doesn't come back 50 pounds in in 4 months, but it comes back.
Right.
And all during this time, I wasn't eating any differently when I was on the drug and I was off the drug. The long and short of this particular study, the drug failed for controlling type 2 diabetes. Because even when I hit 168, I still had type 2 diabetes.
Sure.
Uh, However, the manufacturers of the drug switched the category. They now use it for weight loss.
Well, of good. Sounds like they should, really.
But it's not one of those generic drugs. There's no generic equivalent.
Okay.
So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go use Contrave to lose weight, you have to have a prescription and it's very costly. I was getting it free because I was part of the study.
Sure.
I couldn't
Exactly.
have afforded that. It's like $5 a pill, and that would
Wow.
have been $20 a
A
day for the
day just
one.
for the pills. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there are, I think I was a part of 4 or 5 studies over a period of 5 or 6 years, but none of them ended up controlling my diabetes. Uh, I was a guinea pig and we tested and we kept records and all of that. One of the things I want to mention at this point, um, I'm a uh, a junkie when it comes to the internet. Um, I'm bombarded on Facebook like many of
Everybody
our
else. Right.
visitors. Um, I end up inquiring about things that look curious or interesting.
Right.
And once you click on a list, you're added to other lists.
Right.
And so I get an average of 2 to 300 emails a day. Most of them I want to get rid of.
Yeah.
And even if you click on junk,
Unsubscribe. Yeah. It
yeah,
doesn't go
it
away.
doesn't go away. You
Right.
still get them. One of the things that I notice on Facebook, and it comes with the endorsement. Now, when I say endorsement, I haven't verified that these people are really endorsing it.
Right.
But a lot of big names, especially media stars. And one of the things that's been pushed are a form of gummy bears.
Okay.
Well, hey, if that works,
Hey,
hey,
we'll all get on
I,
it.
I
Yeah.
eat gummy bears. So I've actually ordered them and tried them. And when one didn't work per day, I tried two, and then I ate the whole bottle.
I love it.
And still, there are claims that these damn things work. Well, they don't work for Gary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the
Go ahead.
interesting part is about all these different things that we're getting bombarded with. Um, Usually in the very fine print, which they don't even talk about if you actually talk to a human about the product. Um, they all say that, you have to watch your calorie intake, you have to eat the right balance. You can't be a couch potato, so you have to exercise to some degree. And, you know, again, if you get this disease when you're in your 50s or 60s and you've never been athletic in any way, shape, or form previously, there's less of a chance you're going to become an exercise guru at an older age. And if you ate in a routine manner, and I'll go back to the way we grew up. Um, you know, our parents didn't have a lot of money, but I don't think
Wednes- Wednesday was peaches.
yeah. But is even though that we didn't have a lot of money, we did have a variety of foods on our table every night and enough to fill us up. And there was always dessert. And like you said, sometimes it was canned peaches and they were filled with tons of sugar. Um, and maybe we weren't gaining weight as young kids at the time, but eventually we kept eating like this as time went on.
We were set up.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and we all think of food as that something that's going to comfort us.
Mhm.
So as we talk about this, one of the things I shared with Gary before we came online, my husband, um, he doesn't take insulin. He uses other medications for his type 2. And in the first series on diabetes, Rich was involved in the conversation. And he said, yeah, you know, I don't like it when my levels get up to 125. And there's that Gary saying, I wish my levels only got up to 125. And my husband can eat a candy bar typically, and it doesn't spike them or anything. However, it was right after that podcast, um, he started working longer hours. And I don't know if it's less sleep or the work or even what he was eating in between, but something changed. And his 120 to 125 number went up to in the 150s, which for him was high. And I think we all have to understand that we all are different. And what's high for one person may be somebody else's low. And I think that's probably, Gary, where you find it frustrating because the doctors aren't giving you any real guidance on how to handle this, even after 20 years.
So one of the things, I've been going to the same primary doctor for over 20 years.
Okay.
And I go in twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, and he does his routine things. He checks my lungs and he checks my blood pressure and so on. And one of the questions he always asks me, he said, Gary, are your feet swollen? All right. And the answer is no. And I've heard um, some scary things about diabetics
Right.
with amputations and things about feet. Back last April, um, all of a sudden my feet were swollen. And I was quite concerned about that. And I saw the doctor about 2 weeks later at a scheduled appointment. And I said, before you even start to ask me anything, I want you to know and take a look. My feet are swollen. And he looked very casually and he says, that's no problem. And after, after 20 years with that as a specific
Yeah.
question, I was floored. I thought he would send me to the ER or something. And what is the name of the condition when you have tingling in your
Oh,
limbs?
diabetic nerve pain?
Neuropathy.
Neuropathy.
Neuropathy. So, in addition to swollen feet, I've had neuropathy for a long time, but I would get it and it would go away. I don't know if it was related to when my sugar was high or low
Sure.
or whatever, but it came and it went, and I was just used to it. Well, since my feet are swollen, I have neuropathy in both my hands and my feet
Wow.
constantly. It never goes away. Sometimes, you know how, well, I don't know if you have ringing in your ears.
Yes, I do.
I
We
I've
got it
got
from our
that.
dad.
Well, I have that too. But sometimes you're totally unaware of it because it's been happening for so long,
Right,
or maybe in certain conditions. And other times you can't stop thinking about it.
right,
And you, it drowns out watching TV or
right.
doing whatever you're doing. So I'm sometimes surprised at the answers from the doctors when you show them or you tell them something like this. And I don't know, that just makes me more frustrated.
Well, and I can understand that. So one of the things I'm going to ask you, and it sounds like the doctor didn't address this, but in April it was almost a full year that you've been sitting on your chair in your condo because of COVID. So not a
Mhm.
lot of movement, really no place to go. And even when you did go out, um, it probably was just to go out and get a prescription, get back in your car and come home.
Right.
Um, so now that you're more out and about, do you notice the swelling going down at all?
Not the swelling, but um, my general attitude towards things is better. Um, but like all of you, it's usually not just one thing.
Right,
It's a combination of things. And my combination is different than your combination.
right.
So I appreciate how difficult it is for the diagnostician, the doctor, to figure it out because there are so many variables. Uh, Maybe at some point in time, diagnosticians will take all these little things, or they might take a drop of blood and do it like a forensic
Sure.
scientist, and it'll spit out the answer. Uh, but that doesn't exist yet. So we do what we do.
Well, and I think that's a really important message. Um, as we think about it, um, you know, your oldest daughter, she has an illness, and when she feels good or has enough strength to mindfully make herself feel good, she can get a lot of things done.
Mhm.
But when her disease affects her, sometimes it can't be mind over matter. Matter just takes hold, and I think it does that with diabetes or any disease we all have. um, I have a immune condition called lichen planus, and most people who get this, they get a breakout and they don't even know how to treat the breakout, but you get a breakout and eventually goes away, and it may come back and it may not. And so I'm this lucky person who has had this condition in my mouth now for 12 years, to the point that um, I have to keep a piece of gum in my mouth to keep my mouth salivating, because as soon as it dries, it's painful and it's not something I can ignore. Um, and so I'm finally, after all this time, we found a doctor who now is at least studying the disease. Um, and he's going to run some tests. But as I was told, he's studying it. You know,
Mhm.
they don't know what to do for it.
Mhm.
Um, in most days, nobody would know that I even have it because, again, um, you know, you just try to put one step in front of the other. Somebody else could have the same thing and may find that, they can't do that. And so I think the premise of this show, as we talk about diabetes, is about the fact that it's going to be different for everybody. When you're sitting at a meal with your family, and somebody makes a suggestion, oh, this works for me, we can't take it as, oh, well, if I do it, it's going to work for me too.
Mhm.
Um, so when you were first diagnosed, um, and you were living out in California at that time, and um, California, at least in your area, is supposedly so progressive. Um, did you really think that maybe you were going to be lucky with medical schools out there, that they were going to really find a cure or give you a concrete answer?
Not I didn't think in those terms, but I did something really stupid back then, and I didn't even think about what I was doing. Um, One of the things that we hear related to diet is vegetables are good. Okay. Would you agree?
Yeah, vegetables
Oh,
and fruit are supposed to be good for you.
okay. So at this time, I was in the 200-pound, 220-pound category, and I um, wasn't involved with the doctor yet, but I decided that I was going to put myself on a liquid vegetable diet. Now, that sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah, a lot of people drink vegetable smoothies all day long.
Yeah. So, my beverage of choice was V8 juice, which I
Oh,
love. And I even got the kind that's a little bit spicy.
okay.
It felt like I was drinking Bloody Marys all day long.
Hey.
Well, I not only drank it, but I was drinking an average of 64 ounces per day.
Wow.
And my stomach was fine. My taste buds were fine. But I never even considered how much sugar was in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And this all came about at the same time where I went to that mobile unit and
Right.
everything. And that's why my sugar was high, because maybe for a week I was drinking all this
V8
vegetable
juice.
juice. And I don't know whether you can grind your own vegetables into juice so that you can have it without the sugar. But I think that was one of my first times that I had the awareness of how much sugar was in everything.
Right. Well,
And that also is so frustrating because I love pasta.
yeah,
Okay. And all these carbs turn directly into sugar.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so there's very little you can do to cut back or
Right.
cut out. And then if you have too many of the sugar free items, I don't know about you, but they make you diuretic.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then the other thing is in those products, there are other additives. Many of those chemicals are not good for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you're training off one for the other, and you're sort of trapped. And then when you go to the experts or you see what self proclaiming experts are saying online, it's like after you spent the money, they disappear.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting you brought that up about the V8 juice. Um, so about 6 months ago, it was maybe a little bit longer than that. It was recommended that since I don't like to eat fruit by itself, I mean, I might have a strawberry, but I won't sit down and have a dish of strawberries. I like
Have you
watermelon.
put whipped cream on it?
Oh, that's really good for me. Yeah, no. um, so I was told that, if you take fresh fruit and you liquefy it and
Mhm,
basically make a smoothie, but don't add sugar to it, don't add cream to it. You can use like green tea as your liquid base. That should be good for you. And so every morning I was making a fruit smoothie. One morning it was with strawberries, next one it was with blueberries. And I was picking the fruits that they kept saying were high in antioxidants, which is supposed to
mhm,
be wonderful for you. And after about a week, my husband noticed that um, I had all this quivering in my face, in my cheeks, in my chin. And he kept asking me what was wrong. And I said, there's nothing wrong. But I was feeling it, but I was trying to ignore it. So, make a long story short, I went to the doctor and um, he told me that I was intaking too many antioxidants. And so I was depleting my body from certain things. And with this immune disease in my mouth, it was hitting there first. And so I was quivering because it needed something else. And so I said to him, but how can we talk about these things? And he goes, well, nobody told you to drink it every day. And I said, but some people do. In fact, we have a brother who makes himself vegetables and fruit smoothies every day. That's part of his diet. But as my doctor said to me, he obviously is eating other things or taking other supplements that are okay for him, which
mhm,
might not be for you. So again, to all of our, listeners out there, um, you can go out on the internet, and I'm going to put this in the show notes that um, just because you have increased thirst doesn't mean you're diabetic, but increased thirst can be one of the symptoms for a diabetic.
mhm,
Um, that, frequent urination. Well, if you're drinking a lot, you're going to go to the bathroom a lot, you know? And so when you look at this list, don't just automatically assume, no, I have those. I must be diabetic or I must have some certain disease because you're only going to drive yourself crazy. And you brought this up before. You said the more you try to, um, I'm not exactly sure how you said, but it was like the more you think about what you need to do for this disease, the worse it feels.
mhm. Yeah, it does. And when you make these adjustments, it puts other things, it changes the balance on other things.
Right.
It's, um, related to diabetes, they're concerned about my kidneys. And to help my kidneys, I took myself off of certain supplements that were making my kidneys hurt.
Okay.
But in taking myself off of them, I now feel the arthritis in my hands and knuckles and knees. And so, there's constant trade-off.
Trade offs. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I I get it, and I'm hoping that our listeners do because um, we all want to do the right thing. We may not be exactly sure what the right thing is. Um, our doctors are practicing medicine, so therefore they don't always know all the right things. Um, but in your case, Gary, now that you're noticing the arthritis more, is there a way to add some of these things back into your diet at a lower rate?
Um, Probably I haven't done anything proactive to
Okay.
deal with it. I complain a lot.
We all
I'm
do.
I'm losing friends because I'm complaining too much. Um, but I do know I've gone back to a part-time job. It's not as many hours a week as I would like it to be. I'd like it to be more. But while I'm working, I'm experiencing less pain. And for me, that distraction is really helpful,
Absolutely.
and it does get me up out of the house, gives me a reason to go take a shower every day
That's right.
because just sitting in the chair for months and months, uh, there were sometimes I'd go 2, 3 days. I mean, I wasn't seeing anybody anyways.
Right.
And you don't work up a sweat just sitting in your chair.
Right.
You don't even offend yourself.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about on a number of our different shows here at New Cleveland is that we all need a purpose. And uh, getting up, off the chair, what is the purpose of it if I have nowhere to go? Um, this past week, um, a lot of my shows had gotten moved around, and I had a lot of free time, so to speak, that I normally don't have. And I found myself walking around um, our townhouse trying to find things to do. And uh, I realized how ridiculous that was because I really had an opportunity to relax because this week is not going to be a relaxing week. But my brain didn't go there because I know that I can avoid feeling all the pain in my mouth when I'm busy, just like you said, when you're busy doing something and you got to get it done. Um, there's time later to feel it if you have to feel it.
Right.
So before we end this today, um, how do diabetes and Scrabble come together? Or do they?
I don't think so. Um, at my club, um, in the past, there have been times when I've brought in snacks and treats. I don't feel compelled to do that anymore. This is something else that kind of connects with it. I'm in the senior community. There are hundreds of different clubs. And when clubs meet, they bring in snacks or treats.
Right.
And if you take a look at what we're dishing out to other people that probably have the same conditions that
Yeah.
we do, we're giving them candy and cookies, and people give themselves permission to eat those things
Right.
if they're put out for you. They might not have a cookie jar at home or a candy bowl, but at the club, it's sitting there.
Right. So they're
And
going to eat
whether
it.
it's the Scrabble Club or the Bridge Club or the Pinochle Club, there are all these things. Well, I've cut back now. Instead of things to eat, uh, I give away scratch off tickets uh, as a prize. So, uh, anyways, but other than that, other than getting the word diabetes on your rack, there's no other
Yeah.
connection.
Well, I mean, I'm just curious because um, for a good majority of my life, you've always been a word guy. And then you got, very involved in Scrabble. And now your Scrabble club is back, which I think is probably a good thing for you and, all those that have been locked away and trying to play Scrabble online, which may have been okay the first month or two, but after that, it probably got a little stale for
Well, it's interesting. There are some people that discovered online Scrabble because of the pandemic.
Right.
A lot of those people are not returning to club because my club plays in the evening at 6 o'clock. And especially if you're talking with the senior population, uh, lights are out at 7 if they're staying home. So those people don't want to get up and out.
Got it.
And it has hurt the club to some extent. But again, there's a trade off. There are some people who are so tired of staying at home, they're now willing to venture out to club, even though they might not be the best of players. They want somewhere to go out of
Yeah.
the house.
Right.
And I provide that opportunity on Wednesday evenings. So we have picked up a number of people new to the club, and that's good.
Well, longevity of life deals with purpose. And again, this past year, um, some of us were lucky enough to, to be able to continue finding the purpose to get up every single day and do the things we want to do. Um, and now, that most of the pandemic has been lifted, um, it's now our chance to, um, you know, do what's good for us. And if you're going to share your journey, make sure that others understand that, you're not condoning one thing or another. What works for you works for you. And if somebody wants to try it, they are more than, um, they're not obligated to. But I always say that you probably should check with your doctor before you do anything drastic.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll see you again in about a week or so. We'll do this again. And I'm going to reach out to a few people who I know are also diabetic. And we're going to put together a panel discussion because I think that might be helpful to our listeners.
Very good.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
Like your pink shirt.
Oh, thank you.